Hey, Vikings fans, welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer and talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, we do. And another edition of the mystery beer tonight. I'm super excited, and you brought it, so I'm excited to try to guess what we've got going.
I think you're gonna like this one.
Oh man! All right. Well, I already have a guess, but we'll save that for a minute.
Should we do a pre-guess?
I that's totally unfair because all I have is I think you're gonna like this one.
Well, I won't tell you one way or another, but you could. I mean, that's the beauty of recording is we can go back and you can prove that you were right or wrong.
That's true.
So what's your pre-guess?
Oh man, pre-guess just off the way that you said that, a hazy IPA, and don't give me anything.
All right. I'm not giving you anything.
All right, just because like if you talk to somebody about pizza we're gonna have, and dude loves pepperoni pizza, and you're like, hey man, you're gonna love the pizza tonight. Like, okay, I guess we're having pepperoni pizza.
I guess you'll have to find out.
So maybe a hazy IPA. Before we find out, though, we do have to thank our friends at Big Top Ventures. So shout out to Big Top Ventures for sponsoring today's episode. They can get you the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusives in Mexico or Jamaica. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. If you're interested in checking out what pricing they can give you, go ahead, and Evan's pointing down at their email address. If you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify, you can see it. But go ahead and send them an email letting them know you're interested. Their email address is bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. And I'm just going to keep saying it until I'm there. I'm going in less than a month now. We're T-minus a few weeks. So I'm super pumped, and it's all because of Big Top Ventures. So thanks, guys.
There you go. All right. Should we crack these open and see if you're right?
Yeah, we'll see if my hazy IPA guess is right. I will say, Evan, you still have a pretty decent tinfoil job, but this is probably your least performing tinfoil job so far.
They were a little condensated when I got them home from the store.
Excuses, okay.
I've said from the get-go, you are a much better tinfoil wrapper than I am.
Okay, well, I accept that. I don't quite agree because your other ones have been great, but let's open these up and give them a try.
Room for improvement.
Hey, get better every day. Oh, man. All right, definitely smells really good. Oh, there it is. I'm seeing so it's not quite orange, but very citrusy looking. Maybe what I would consider like a grapefruit looking, maybe a little orangey now that it's all poured in there. Definitely an IPA. All right, let's give this a try.
Skol.
Skol.
What do you think?
That is good. It's a hazy IPA.
It is a hazy IPA.
It is a hazy IPA.
So you have correctly identified.
Well, when you tell somebody who loves hazy IPAs, you're really going to like the beer tonight.
And I had nothing to go off of. We've never had this beer on the show. As far as I know, you've never had this beer ever. I'm pretty sure this is a limited time release.
Ooh.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So you purchased this one close by, right? At our normal
yes.
spot?
Yep. Devil's Glen Hy-Vee.
We love them. Talk about sponsors. We need to get them on board. They'd be perfect sponsors. They provide all the beer, except for the Skol Hop beer. We did that ourselves. Thanks, Forrest. All right.
So last week you had me guess the type, the ABV, and the brewer.
Yeah.
So you
I think I got
the
type right.
100%. Yep.
I will say the flavor is crisp and refreshing and light. It's not if you hate IPAs, I don't think that you would turn your nose up at this one because it's not a hoppy flavor that's going to punch you in the face. It's a nice, light, refreshing hoppy flavor. It's still there, but it's not.
It's very citrusy.
Yeah.
It's very juicy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Juicy. That's the right word, I think. But yeah, a light flavor in the best way possible. Man, what was it? Type ABV brewer.
Mm-hmm.
So ABV, so I'm kind of conflicted here. You said you got 4 of them. And usually when beers come in 4-packs, specifically 12-ounce cans, that means they run a little bit higher on the ABV. So just going off that, if it was just the flavor, I would guess like 5.5 to 6.
Okay.
But just knowing quantity, because I've seen some of the 4-pack, IPAs at our favorite Devil's Glen Hy-V, and
you can get up there.
Yeah.
You can get into the 9, 10, 11, 12%.
Yeah. So I don't think it's 12. I'm not getting that that punch in the face of, stupor. I'm gonna guess 7.5.
Final answer?
Final answer, 7.5.
You're a little high.
Oh, okay.
Your deduction skills are strong, but not maybe quite a Sherlock type of
All right.
deduction. I think, and this is my theory, could be wrong, but I think the 4-pack is due to the limited release.
Okay.
Not the alcohol percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a 6%.
Okay. All right.
6.0.
So, okay.
So your initial kind of taste test, I think, was more correct.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's right. What did I say? 5.5 to 6 if I was guessing just off the taste. But
Yep.
either way, my final answer was 7.5. So I was wrong on that one. Brewery. Have we had this brewery before?
We've had this brewery before, yes.
Local brewery?
Not hyper local, not one that we frequent or one that we go to or could go to like right now.
Okay.
It would take a little planning to go there, but we might be planning to go there soon, actually.
Interesting. Would it take us more than 2 hours to get there?
No.
Okay. Is it Big Grove?
It is not Big Grove.
Interesting. Dang it. You nailed it last week. You had the brewery right off the bat in Peachtree.
Well, I was looking through our beer list, and I'm looking at our beer list again.
All right.
Because we track all the beers that we've had, and this is beer number 43, believe it or not.
Yeah, this one is. I was trying to look. I thought you were telling me
Oh,
the brewery
sorry.
right
Here,
there.
I'll pull the list up.
All right.
It's in here somewhere. That's not the full list,
All
but
right. Is it Backpocket?
it is Backpocket.
All right.
Yeah.
Backpocket. Good one. We've had, which one did we have? Their Gold Coin.
Gold-
Now that I'm seeing it
Gold
over there.
Coin,
That
yep.
was a good one.
So this is Backpocket's Hazy Forecast.
Ooh. Okay.
And I liked the can art too.
It is.
Says a juicy hazy IPA that is more reliable than a feline meteorologist. And it's a cat predicting the weather.
All right.
It's kind of cheesy, but
The can
That's
art is
fun.
really cool. Like, it's not just your normal regular can art. It's really cool.
Well, and I think it's a play off of like Iowa weather too, because like one day on the forecast is -18, and then it's 76 and everything's great, and then it's 112 and the sun is really angry. So that definitely describes Iowa weather.
Yeah.
It's definitely bipolar, and some days it's great and some days it's not.
And I feel like this beer would taste good on any of the 3 examples that they list on their can. So
Yeah.
I like this a lot. What do you think?
I like it too. Yeah. I saw it on the shelf and I'm like, he's going to expect me to bring an amber. I got to mix it up a little bit. And I read the description on the can and I was like, yeah,
Yeah, this is a good one.
we're doing it.
And I really do think this is an IPA for everybody, not just people that love IPAs. Because the flavor, and maybe if we handed this to my wife and had her try it, she'd make a terrible face because she hates IPAs. But I really think most people would at least not hate this one. I really like it because I like IPAs, and it's a nice, refreshing, almost like poolside or lakeside IPA. But yeah, it looks really nice. I like it a lot. I'm excited to get a better opinion of it after a few more.
There you go. Skol.
Skol.
Well, we've got some news that we have to discuss because today is Monday, June 3rd, and one of the bigger dominoes that we've been waiting to fall in the Vikings offseason has finally fallen.
You're right. Dalton Risner did sign back with the team.
Now, that was last week.
Well, then what do you mean, Ev? What are you talking about?
Brett Favre is coming back.
No way. Now that would be a story bigger than what actually happened today. Tell us, Ev, what happened today?
No, what actually happened today, probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock this morning.
It was 8:18 when he tweeted it out.
Adam Schefter, that is, right?
No.
JJ did?
JJ. He wanted to
Okay.
do it himself.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, dang it. I went on a rant last week, and first opportunity, I totally muffed it. Justin Jefferson.
So Justin Jefferson has officially signed his contract extension with the Vikings. It's been a long time coming. We even talked just a few weeks ago about, well, maybe the Vikings wait another year and see how things develop.
Well, but then we realized we were wrong on the length of his contract. We were thinking at the time, they've got this coming season and next season under the current contract.
But they still had this season.
Yeah,
right?
But that would have been it. Like, he would have been in a Kirk Cousins situation where his contract would have expired in March, if not for a restructure or re-sign, which thankfully this morning they announced that it happened.
So what were the official details of the contract?
So it was an extension. So he was already signed through 2024 it was his 5th year option. So I think somewhere just shy of $20 million for this year, but fully guaranteed. And the contract he signed, or that was made official today, is an extension on top of that. So he signed a 4-year extension for $140 million with something like, I'm pretty confident I've got the right number, $89 million guaranteed at signing. So all that to say, he's locked up contractually with the Vikings through the 2028 season, so 5 more seasons, because this year still counted. They didn't rip up his current deal for what is it, almost $200 million for 5 seasons. Well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it. And I think I even saw, this isn't super important, but I think I saw that his cap number for this season ended up going down by like $10 million, so it opened up a little bit more space for the Vikings.
I think his cap number this year and next year are still like $1 million.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. I don't know exactly what it is, and we could probably pull up over the cap, or I don't know if anything's officially official yet.
I saw something, maybe I'm wrong, but I saw something that said it was $1 million this year and $1 million next year. Okay. Oh, that's his base salary for the next 2 seasons, but his cap hit is $8.6 million this year and $15 million next year.
Okay. So, and I'm pretty sure his cap hit before this restructure or extension for this year was going to be close to that $20 million. So they saved, I thought I saw somewhere around $10 million in cap for this season, which, I mean, that's a starting level player. If your first team left tackle goes down, then you can try to go out and sign somebody who may be out there. That was just a quick example. I don't have any idea who's available at left tackle in free agency right now. But they already had a little bit of wiggle room in cap space. I think even before this, they had something like $16-ish million in cap space for the coming year.
Yeah, and the Vikings are up to 27.7
nice
in cap space now.
And yeah, we're not. We did talk with Dustin Baker, which our conversation with Dustin Baker will be coming up here in a few minutes, but we did talk about potential guys that could be signed. We've referenced his articles in the past few weeks about potential free agents, so no big move for a free agent is probably going to happen, but at least they have some cap space if a doomsday scenario happens where somebody goes down and you have to quickly pay a lot more than you would have for a free agent that's on the street right now.
Do you think the Vikings, and this would actually be a really good question for Dustin if we were going to record coming up with him, but we recorded in retrospect a few days ago. But do you think that now that there is more cap space, do they restructure anyone else to maybe put a little bit more on this year so that they're not as liable in future years? That'd be a good
question. And maybe one that would be more prevalent if we knew, because next year, and of course this was before the Justin Jefferson signing, next year they were looking at quite a bit of cap space available for free agents and guys like Darisaw and other big name guys that might be coming up. So I don't know. I think they're doing pretty good, and I wish I knew exact numbers, the way they sit. But I think even for this year and definitely for next offseason, the Vikings are doing pretty decent. So they might be in position to sign a big name free agent in March, like they did this past season with Jonathan Grenard, and the insurance policy with Sam Darnold, who is cheap for a starting quarterback, but wasn't the cheapest option out there. They could have gone way cheaper. So I think cap space wise, the Vikings are looking pretty good. And yeah, maybe there's some development that needs to happen, but on the field wise for this year, there's a lot of things to be excited for. So,
Agreed.
yeah, I'm very excited. We should all be happy Justin Jefferson is locked up for the next handful of years. And the outlook of this team is looking pretty good. Young, maybe not so experienced right now, but in future years, there's a lot to be excited about.
Yes, a lot to be excited about. I think Kwesi has really proven himself this year. I think this offseason was kind of the make or break year for him. Mm-hmm. You get stuff right this year, and you keep your job for the next several years at the very least. But you get things wrong, especially something like this with Justin Jefferson, and now all of a sudden you're on the hot seat.
Yep.
And you're on the first plane out of Minneapolis because you lost your job.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this deal really solidifies that this offseason was arguably Kwesi's best, definitely since taking over as the GM for the Vikings, and maybe the best that he's had in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, think about it. I think I said last week or the week before that the Vikings very well could be sitting in a similar spot right now that the Raiders are sitting in right now. The Raiders, they're looking at a QB1 of either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. They have not a lot of big-name players on their roster. They did just get looks like a home run head coach signing, but the Raiders, there's not like a bunch of exciting things to be happy about for them. And the Vikings very well could have been in a similar spot if they've totally flubbed the quarterback situation, which we can argue back and forth if you wanted to really about they needed Kirk Cousins and because they didn't sign him, it's a bust. But either way, they solidified the quarterback position with QB1 and quarterback of the future, depending on how you see Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. They locked up Justin Jefferson, which that's enough they got it right. And yeah, he's expensive, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history right now. But you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that says Justin Jefferson is not worth being that highest paid player. Maybe weird Cowboys fans who think CeeDee Lamb is way better, but whatever.
Well, I listened to a few of the talking heads today, and they were saying that now that this deal is done, CeeDee Lamb is now going to find himself under what JJ got.
Yeah, not too far under.
Not too far under, but like there was kind of maybe this game of chicken going on between the Cowboys and the Vikings of who's going to go first, and obviously the Vikings have. But they made it pretty clear, the talking heads on ESPN, that CeeDee Lamb will be below Justin Jefferson in terms of the clout in the contract, the dollars behind the contract. So, again, not too far below, but Justin Jefferson should feel pretty good that he'll be the highest paid wide receiver for a long time.
At least this season. I don't know who's going to overtake him.
He might be the highest paid wide receiver for a while.
Yeah.
And he will hold for at least this year the highest paid non-quarterback. So
yeah, I would guess CeeDee Lamb, because Justin Jefferson got an average of 35 a year with this extension. I would guess CeeDee Lamb, his contract will be an average of something like 32, 33 a year maybe. He's really good. Any team, including the Vikings, would be very happy to have him, but I'm glad we've got Justin Jefferson instead of him. I'd take them both, but if I could only pick one, the obvious choice is Jefferson.
So very exciting and just a nice little cherry on top to a pretty good offseason so far for the Vikings.
One more note on Justin Jefferson, and I think you'll agree with me, and I think I've hammered this point home a couple of times before, but how amazing did he handle publicly all of everything in the last really couple of seasons? Being asked basically every time he goes in front of the media, like, hey, at least somebody will ask him once, so what about an extension? Where's that at? He's always given quality, solid, politically correct answers, always has been nice and good to the team, has never tweeted, weird poems about hating life. He's always, the NFL puts him in the front of the franchise and the league as far as marketing goes. And he says the right things and does the right things. And Vikings fans should be very happy that he's on our team, and I would buy my kids his jersey. Like, he's just seems like a good dude.
Yep. Yeah, and so he will, if I could make a bold prediction right now, he'll find his way definitely into the Ring of Honor.
Oh yeah.
At US Bank Stadium when he's done playing, and I think if he continues on the trajectory that he's on, he'll easily be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think he's already made the case for Ring of Honor. Like, if it won't happen. But if for some reason tomorrow he woke up and physically couldn't play football ever again, like his legs just melted overnight or something, I think you could make the case already he is Ring of Honor worthy. Hall of Fame, no, probably not with his current numbers and longevity, but already for Vikings Ring of Honor, you can already pick out where they're going to put his name. Like, I think that's a given.
Yeah. Well, again, really exciting. Cherry on top of what's been a fun off season to kind of track. And now we're getting into the thick of June and July, and we get into mini camp, and we get into training camp and all that kind of stuff. So definitely some more stuff on the horizon.
Absolutely.
As we go through the summer months.
Yeah.
So
the rest of the episode, basically, we've got, we recorded with Dustin Baker. It was midweek last week. It was actually the day the Vikings re-signed Dalton Risner.
Yep.
Which was really cool to talk to Dustin. However, obviously, at that moment, Justin Jefferson had not signed his deal yet. So I think we do talk with him a little bit about what's going on here. Should we be worried? Should we not? And if I remember right, Dustin was very confident saying it'll get done. Like,
yep.
I don't think we need to worry about it. I think I may have even started to ask a question about, like, is this a Kwesi thing? Should we be concerned about Kwesi? And again, Dustin batted that down too. So really good conversation with Dustin. I do want to point out, since it is a little outdated, an article on Dustin's website, Vikings Territory. It's an article by Yannick Eckhard, but it basically just says the Justin Jefferson saga is finally over. So go check that one out. We can link it.
We'll link it in the description.
But it's a good article, just kind of outlining everything that's been going on and what happened and why we should be excited for the future. So, yep, go read that one on Dustin's site by Yannick. And yeah, that's all I had before we toss it over to Dustin.
Yeah,
Anything?
so we'll switch gears here, and we'll get you into our conversation with Dustin, and then we'll catch up with you all at the end.
Yeah, Skol.
Skol.
All right, welcome in, Skol Hoppers. We're joined by, I think it's very safe to say, friend of the show now, Dustin Baker. Thanks for coming on yet again. This has got to be, your fourth or fifth time coming on our show.
Oh, yeah, and I'm not going to stop until you guys stop the invitations.
And as we say every time, we will never stop the invitations. We only have a blast when you're on, so thanks
Likewise.
again for coming on. Really quick, just before we get started, you can find all of Dustin's stuff on Twitter at his personal Twitter account, at DustBaker. He writes everything, most everything, on VikingsTerritory.com. YouTube, Vikes Now. Anything I'm missing that's big?
No, you got it all covered.
All right. Well, we'll link everything down below too, so you can. If you're not following Dustin, you should be, because honestly, lately he has been some very good fodder for the Skol Hop as far as conversation goes. Dustin, I don't know if you've seen yet the last 3, 4, 5 episodes of the Skol Hop. We basically dedicated a whole segment where we isolate one of your articles, or at least one of the Vikings Territory articles. We pump up the article. We tell everybody to go listen or go read it. But we use that article as like a full topic of what we think about what you're talking about and what you write about. So it's been pretty
fabulous. Good. That's because that's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to spur a conversation, and Vikings Territory is kind of like a hybrid of news, but then like fan community sentiment. So what folks are talking about regarding the Vikings. So I'm glad that you're able to use some of those things. It makes me feel warm fuzzies.
Absolutely. And really quick before we dive into everything else, I mean this as a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
A handful of years ago, ProFootballTalk.com used to kind of do the same thing for me. They would present like a fact or a storyline, and then they would give a little bit of opinion, but kind of talk to a football fan, in normal terms.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Football Talk has kind of changed up a little bit. I'm not really clicking on that website every day, but Vikings Territory, in the best way possible, gives me that. You're getting the facts, you're getting a little bit of opinion, but it's more like you're talking to a buddy about what's going on for the Vikings, at least. So that's why I like it a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you. That is mission accomplished then, because in our space we have to report the happenings, but then if it was bland and we give no type of analysis or opinion, it would be like, well, what is this? So yeah, I'm glad that I'm able to intermix some sometimes hot takes along inside there, but I'm glad that there's some of the topics can help feed the show and more.
Yeah. All right, so something big happened in Vikings world today. Yeah. So we're recording a little bit early, Skol Hoppers. Our episode's not going to come out for a handful of days here. But today, the Vikings made a big signing. Dustin, who'd they sign?
Well, they signed Dustin Risner. They signed Dalton Risner, and I was semi-wrong about this one. I have said on this show, I think, and I've written it, that in terms of Risner being back, I kept saying they probably would have done that by now. And then I listened and believed in the coaching staff's words about Blake Brandel. And so I was like, this sounds like a dude like they'd love. And so I figured if Risner was going to be back, it was going to be in the summer if they realized Brandel was looking like garbage. And we didn't get to that. I don't think that means that Brandel's garbage, but I think they realized or found a happy medium with Risner that, hey, we're going to have a reunion. And I'm happy for Risner in particular, because if you saw his Twitter today, he had like 3 posts about it. It was like Skol, then there was the video, then there was like the I'm Back, like from the Michael Jordan magazine in 1995. It was like he finally had his moment. And I think as a human being, that was he was craving. He wanted to be wanted. And he had to sit out all of free agency last year for unknown reasons. It was trending like that this offseason. And the team that we think he loves brought him back at a position that we just so happen to also have a roster need in terms of confidence and somebody being able to be a game ready starter. So yeah, with open arms, just like the rest of you, I like this one.
Yeah. So on the Skol Hop, we've talked in recent weeks about some individuals who just seem to love being Vikings, not just love being in the NFL and are good guys and like being, on a team and well liked, but actually like being a Viking. A couple of guys we've talked about, Harrison Smith might be top of the list on seems to love being a Viking. We've talked about CJ Ham, and then back in the day, we had almost a whole episode dedicated to the great Jim Kleinsasser. And he was another one that seemed to love being a Viking. And I kind of get that sense a little bit from Dalton. I don't think it's that he just wants to be on an NFL team. He seems like a good dude. And honestly, like maybe it's just the excitement overall, but he seems to want to be in Minnesota, which is pretty cool.
I agree. And you could tell by his willingness to talk to reporters at all last year. There was something that came out that said he was always the guy that was like, hey, come talk to me. And the reporters would oblige. And then, of course, he just showered praise on the franchise and was so grateful. And to your point, there's also guys like him that fans will circle and they'll be like, I love that guy. Going back to when I was a kid or a teenager, it was Chris Walsh. He was like this wide receiver, special teams guy. There was a Chris Hovan.
Oh, yeah.
That Vikings fans just kind of label and say, that's our guy. Kleinsasser was one of them. And in a very short time, Risner has become that. And I think it's because he's kind of got that, country western persona. You'll see some of the pictures of him in a cowboy hat. And then he's energetic. And to top it all off, he is what we've asked for about a decade. Just give us a guard who can protect the quarterback. We'll figure out the run blocking shit with something, but just give us somebody who keeps the quarterback upright. Risner does that, even if he isn't a very good run blocker. So I believe that that is why fans have kind of also overinflated him a little bit. Like they like, oh, we need Risner back, and at times I've been like, why? Like it'll be cool, but we don't absolutely need him back. But I like it because assuming JJ McCarthy takes the baton sometime in 2024, you're going to have total continuity on the offensive line, and you've got a guy whose MO is pass protection, which means in theory McCarthy should get off to a better start pass protection wise than Cousins ever got sans 6 or 7 games last year.
Yeah. So this might be a dumb question, but Risner right now presumed starter. There's no question about that.
It's been a hot take suddenly. What did he sign at about 11 o'clock or so this morning? There were some, like The Athletic, and I think some of the local entities said, wait, not so fast. The team loves Blake Brandel. And I totally get that. They really have said, like Wes Phillips went out of his way to say every guy deserves a chance. This guy's basically getting a promotion. I guess they had to walk that back. So I understand that there might be some appearance of a camp battle. But this is Dalton Risner. And I don't think that he's just going to be a backup. They let Ezra Cleveland go, who was a really decent left guard, walk. So yeah, there could be a little bit of generated competition from look how good Brando looks. Maybe it will be Risner. What I think it is it's a 1-year deal. Brando will probably see the field when injuries hit, and who knows? I mean, because he can play tackle and guard, I think he'll start to get an audition there. But I wouldn't circle this as an honest to goodness camp battle, because otherwise you might as well just keep Brandel and then just sign some veteran swing style guard. I think Risner will start.
For sure. Sweet.
So the Vikings have, I think, kind of been somewhat quiet in free agency. I mean, especially since the draft, there really hasn't been a whole lot of movement that way other than the Dalton Risner signing. So the next question we have for you, Dustin, is are there going to be any other moves that way? Or outside of free agency, do you see any sort of extension for existing players happening? I think there's one obvious one that we can hit on for sure.
No, I think the good part after Jefferson's deal gets done is there's not a whole lot of housework to do until we do this all over again with Darisaw next spring and probably summer. So that's kind of the cool part of the Jefferson thing on the checklist is once that one's done, and then maybe it bleeds into August, early September, is once that's done, then we're good for a while. Darisaw will be the next one. Hawkinson got crossed off the list last year. So no, I don't think we'll have to ponder any more big extensions or even medium-sized extensions. In terms of players that I envision, so this started off as a bold prediction. I formulated on some show or in some article, I can't remember, that Cam Akers would be back this summer. And then 2 days after I said that, wherever I said it, there was the video of him working out or doing his thing at TCO. And I was like, oh, shit, that's not going to be considered bold anymore. I think Akers will be back. I don't know if that will be like this week, like Risner. But Minnesota has 5 running backs. And there's 2 that we're really excited about. And then we have a kick returner who doubles as a running back. Dwayne McBride, who I don't even know if will make the team because he looked so putrid in the preseason last year. And then Myles Gaskin, who was good for like 10 games in 2020. So to me, there's a running back deficiency at RB3. And there's no better person to come aboard for cheap to fill RB3 than Cam Akers. Let's face it, between Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, one of them is probably going to get hurt. We'll hope that it's only for a couple games. It'll probably be Aaron Jones. And if you could guarantee me 17 games from each man, then I really won't care who the WR3 or the RB3 is. But we're virtually assured to have one man get hurt because that's what happens to running backs. Fantasy football managers can tell you all about it. So I think having Akers there, who's hungry, who is another locker room guy that everybody seemed to love, at least the coaching staff and teammates. I think Akers back makes all the sense in the world, mainly because he wants to be back. And then you have the Zapruder footage of him and Egan working out. And then my personal wish list is similar to a lot of the fans. Calais Campbell would just make my mind go like, yes, they finally get it, that you can employ a defensive tackle who's good. That would just make me warm and fuzzy all over again. And then Hunter Renfrow also makes sense at WR3. I'm convinced that when we chat about Jalen Naylor and Brandon Powell and Trent Sherfield, that is a WR4 discussion. That's what we should be talking about, is who's going to be the WR4. But no, we have made it a WR3 conversation out of necessity. So I would say if they just added one of the remaining WR3s on the market, Julio Jones, even though he's old, Michael Thomas can play for 8 games until he's hurt, and then Hawkinson will be back, and then we won't care about the WR3 anymore. I would say Calais Campbell, Hunter Renfrow are ones they should. Realistically, it'll probably be Cam Akers, and then keep your eye on roster cut down day on August, blah, 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 whatever it is, because on that sad day, like 1,200 players lose their job, about 400 go to a practice squad, and then bada bing, 700 free agents are chilling there. And I think the Vikings will probably have $7, $8, $9 million in cap space. And if they still need a WR3, or they can scoop a 3-tech defensive tackle, I think that would be kind of a fail-safe for any of these free agency contingencies.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that cut down day time. That could be a sneaky good talker come, first week of the NFL season. Something that just kind of came into my head. So we were talking about extensions. It seems like in the Rick Spielman era, the obvious extensions, they just seem to happen. You would know, okay, Adrian Peterson's contract's coming up. He's going to get re-signed. We're not sweating it. Since Kwesi has come aboard, and I'm a Kwesi fan, it feels like we're sweating a lot of things. Like, I think back to a year ago, we were, TJ Hawkinson had a mysterious back tightness injury because we were
ear infection.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it was healed the day he got paid.
Exactly, which we all knew would happen. Do you think it's a Kwesi thing that maybe he's trying to get a little bit more experience, that these extensions aren't as automatic, like he just wants to feel more comfortable about these things, or is it just a whole new regime?
No, I don't think it is a matter of Kwesi being cheap or inexperienced or or just incompetent. I think with Hawkinson, you had to find the right number to pay a position that Kwesi may not, left to his own devices, be thrilled about paying. Tight end is kind of a cake topper. Like, it feels great when you have Travis Kelce or George Kittle or TJ Hawkinson, but it's not like edge rusher, and it's certainly not like quarterback. So I think Kwesi had to either rationalize internally or get Hawkinson down to a couple million to make it fit within his guideline. So that is my spiel on why it took so long. I mean, ultimately that was done well before, or at least well before anybody really started to hold out. With Jefferson, I think it's just a nasty beast, because CeeDee Lamb came from that draft class. So did Tristan Wirfs. Neither one of them have been paid. So I really do believe the reporting from ESPN that says Lamb and Jefferson are in a polite, friendly standoff. Because if Jefferson, or let's say CeeDee Lamb signs tomorrow for $33 million, then Jefferson can point to it and say, you better beat that or you can screw off. It doesn't sound like Jefferson's words, but you know what I mean. His agent can talk like that. Yep. So, and it's basically them doing the Spider-Man meme at each other. Which one goes first? Because I want, 50 cents extra. And I think it's that matter of respect. Plus, whether it's Kwesi or Rick Spielman, the deals, the ginormous ones for these humongous personalities, they always go up against it to the last minute. Dalvin Cooks was like the Saturday before the 2020 season started. Oh, yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, and there's like this unwritten rule, like in Vikingville, that, we will pay those guys, but we're not going to do it until the calendar turns to September. So I think last year's reluctance, I don't think that was a Vikings malfeasance thing. I think it's because Jefferson and his people realized, we can wait. Like, even if you break your leg, you're going to get paid next year. I think they realized that this year they can get their 33, 34 million, basically Nick Bosa's contract, where last year you might have been able to get away with sliding it in at about 30 million. I think that is why at the last minute, this is my theory, not based on intel, I think that's why it held off. And then who lifted it up? Dan Graziano said a couple weeks ago that Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson share an agent, and Joe Burrow's deal strategically didn't get done until late in the summer. And that's just kind of his MO, to wait until all of the pieces come, and then you can point and say, all right, this guy got this amount, this guy this amount, here's what you pay me. So I have zero anxiety about the Jefferson deal getting done. But I will admit it's irritating when, hey, they want Malik Neighbors, so that means they don't want Jefferson. You can just search on Google right now, Justin Jefferson trade, and there are articles that have trade packages discussed, like by Bleacher Report. And I hope that somebody has told Jefferson, like, that stuff, we didn't write any of that. Like, that's all bullshit from the masses. I hope there's an understanding between Jefferson and Kwesi that you were never for sale. We don't take you for granted, because the articles about a Jefferson trade are a dime a dozen. And even if it's not true, it's just fodder for folks, the speculation, the what if.
Exactly. All right. What do we got here? Okay, so yeah, I mentioned we've been talking about some of your articles, some of it just Vikings territory articles in general. A few weeks ago, we talked about one that kind of hinted at some of the three worst parts of the Vikings roster as it sat right then. Obviously, one big thing that happened since then, of course, was the Dalton Risner signing. But as we were talking about it, and we had that fun conversation, we mentioned that when we got you on, we wanted to kind of ask what your rationale was when you ranked, because in the article you ranked how bad off of those position groups were against each other. The worst off you had was defensive tackle. And then a little bit less worse off was the interior offensive line, which today made some changes on that. And then still worse off, but not quite as bad as the other two, were the wide receivers after Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So when we were talking, Evan and I kind of agreed maybe the offensive line was we weren't too sure on the order of that. So we kind of wanted to hear your rationale on why those were ordered the way they were.
So if in that article, I singularly focused on WR3. I don't have a big grievance with wide receiver on the whole, but because of Risner back today, if I was going to rewrite this or repost it, I would slide offensive line, interior offensive line up, so it's less worrisome. Because left up to me, Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandel, and Dalton Risner, that won't set the world on fire. And, you're not going to have multiple or probably any Pro Bowlers from that group. But I am okay with it because Kevin O'Connell is okay with it. And okay. I would not afford the same luxury to Mike Zimmer, nor should anybody, in terms of the offensive line. Now, you can afford all the defense stuff, and that's a lot better than O'Connell's brain does. But on interior offensive line, the moment O'Connell stepped into Egan and then produced his first 13-4 season than last year, the Vikings used to rank around 26th or 27th for overall offensive line efficiency. It was like clockwork. You pull up the article at the end of the season and be like, oh, yay, we're going to be 27th. Oh, look, we're 26th. And it would just be nauseating because you confirmed your eye test. The offensive line wasn't very good, especially the pass protection. And that was that. The script has flipped with O'Connell. Now it's either about 12th best or 13th best in terms of the efficiency. So I trust this group to either say Blake Brandel's good, Garrett Bradbury's going to be fine, Ingram's going to have a big year 3. So I don't have, especially after today, now that Risner's back, I don't have a long-standing grievous with interior offensive line. But if you look at it from an outside perspective, Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, at the time, Blake Brandel, nobody really knows who those guys are besides Vikings fans. Maybe somebody remember Bradbury from the draft. So it's a roster weakness in that sense. I'm glad they recognized it and got deeper with Risner at guard. But this group leadership regime, to me, deserves the benefit of the doubt at offensive line because I like what I have seen the past 2 years. It feels like a new day. You don't have to worry about constant pressure on Cousins then, and then now it'll be Darnold McCarthy. At WR3, the only reason I give a damn about this and consider it a weakness is because TJ Hawkinson probably won't be ready for the start of the season. I don't think Chiefs fans bitch and moan about WR3. They don't have to because Travis Kelce is basically their WR1 or WR2. But with Hawkinson out probably on the PUP list, maybe a rookie quarterback, certainly Darnold, who's totally mid, or at least maybe worse than mid through the duration of his career so far. If Hawkinson was there, I'd be like, all right, well, you got Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, and then they'll figure out the rest. Brandon Powell will be okay, but you don't have Hawkinson out of the gate. And for a team that has right now, on paper, it's a quarterback weakness because we don't know if McCarthy's going to be good. We know that Darnold hasn't been good. So it would make sense to me that unless they have like this really secret, like, hey, Hawkinson's going to be ready, baby, for week 1, you need a guy who can catch the ball at WR3 and move the sticks on third down. And this gets amplified if Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison, if they tweak a hamstring or they sprain an ankle. Yep. Because if you went in, let's say they play the Giants, Jordan Addison scores a touchdown the following play, sprains his ankle, damn it, he's going to be out against the 49ers and Texans. You'd go into that game with Jefferson, Brandon Powell, Josh Oliver, and you'd be like, oh man, we don't have any depth at wide receiver. So the only reason I call for a guy like Renfrow is it adds the depth. It hedges the bet against Hawkinson's injury and then recovery, and then any other thing that could happen to Jefferson Addison. Because if it's just straight up and down, if it's a video game, you got the injuries turned off, you could probably be okay. But we know that's not how real life works. And then certainly defensive tackle. This is the only one when I look at either the big board or the depth chart, I'm like, this is certifiably a weakness, and nobody in that building ever realizes it. They had an opportunity, like 8 or 9 defensive tackles at the exact spot that we need were available. Some of them were really expensive. Some of them were kind of right in the middle. The Vikings signed none of them, and then Friday of the draft came, and then like 10 of them went off the board in the round 2, and we're like, oh God, we're not going to be able to get anybody. So we got prospect X from the 7th round, and then that's it. Jerry Tillery, Jonah Williams, all of these lottery tickets in terms of busting out into stardom. I don't like it one bit. Now, if this market had been, hey, it's Christian Wilkins, he's going to get $110 million from the Raiders, and then that's it, I'd be like, all right, well, I understand it. It was the market was arid, there's nobody to get. But they could have got Eric Armstead, Grover Stewart, Leonard Williams, Maurice Hurst was cheap with the Browns, and then they got nobody. So I'm pretty convinced that once they realized Wilkins couldn't be got for $110 million, Brian Flores looked them in the eyes and said, all right, you better get me 3 edge rushers then. Pal, if you do that, all right, just go ahead and do it. So they're like, all right, we'll get Grenard, we're going to get Van Ginkel, and then, hey, we're going to draft Turner. And he's like, fine, deal. But that's the only thing I can make sense of it. Somebody eventually, some Vikings coach or scout or somebody is going to have to realize you can go sign a guy to play next to the nose tackle that's good. You don't need just some guy there like Jonathan Bullard, Shamar Stephen, and Armin Watts, and Tom Johnson. Like all of these guys, it's just like nobody has ever heard of them. So I wish that we would get with the times and go get Calais Campbell. Or last year we used to call for Ndamukong Suh. And that's why we always ask for those. It's because it's like the one spot that back-to-back regimes are like, nah, we don't need that. I wish they would change their mindset on it, and that will remain a glaring weakness to me until they fix it. We haven't had any excitement at that spot since Sharif Floyd, and that wasn't even like some big badass. That was like, hey, they drafted a guy. They care.
And right when he started to maybe show some signs of figuring it out, he all of a sudden just can't walk anymore.
Yeah, unreal.
One bad nick of the scalpel, and that ruins not only his career, but the Vikings' prospects of having a good defensive line for a while.
Yeah, do you remember 2 seasons, 2018 and then was it 2020 or 2021? Sheldon Richardson got signed. And that should have been a name where we were like, oh, cool. But instead we were like, hell yeah, baby, we got Sheldon. That's how deprived we are of a defensive tackle. And he actually did pretty good. I remember Zimmer had to use him on the edge in a couple games down the stretch of his tenure. But yeah, that's an example. That guy is kind of like, or at least he was. I don't think he plays anymore. A decent defensive tackle. He never lived up to his draft stock. But for Vikings fans, that was like gold. Oh, yeah. It was like, it's like this version of Jerry Tillery, where you're like, hey, at least he was drafted in the first round. We'll take what we can get.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Dustin, referencing the article once more that we kind of had a whole little segment on a previous episode about, you mentioned kind of in our back and forth, kind of leading up to recording right now, that you had a hot take at that wide receiver 3 position. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, absolutely. So it came from a discussion with Yannick Eckhart, who also writes at Vikings Territory. We were talking about WR3, and what the light bulb that we had was, so this is an offense first regime. That's not the light bulb, but to set the stage, we have an offense first regime. Kevin O'Connell knows what he's doing. If there's any deficiencies, it should be on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't think that they have skimmed over the depth chart. We're like, guys, we forgot about WR3. I don't think that's how it is. So my undercover theory or hot take is one of those guys after Jefferson, after Addison, maybe even after Powell, Sherfield, or Naylor, there is a lot of human beings on the depth chart. And my hot take is that somebody of that 6, 7, or 8, that guy is going to break out. And the reason I say that is there is recent precedent in NFL history where, like, WR3s, it's not a large bar to clear to be a WR3. Like, we basically, homie, need you to get 650, 700 yards. You get first downs, and if you can throw in 6, 7 touchdowns, basically KJ Osborne's stat line, maybe a little bit more consistency. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about, hey, can somebody on this Vikings roster bust out? I'm not talking about Adam Thielen, that good. Like, it'd be great, but it's not going to happen. Or somebody like Stephon Diggs from round 5. I don't need somebody that good. I just need somebody to do good at WR3 to the tune of, 50 catches, whatever it is. And in the last 10 years, undrafted guys, Doug Baldwin, Cole Beasley, for better or worse on him, Robbie Chosen, Jacoby Myers, Tim Patrick, Alan Lazard, all of those dudes are undrafted. And at some point, they were on a roster, WR11, on the 90-man team, and somebody's staring at it going, who the hell is Alan Lizard? That's what they're saying. So I'm thinking that there is a guy on this Vikings roster, whether it's Thayer Thomas, who Kevin O'Connell has been complimentary of, Malik Knowles, that one UDFA they paid like $150,000, Deshaun Jones. Yeah. So there are a lot of guys, even after Naylor and Sherfield and Powell, that while we debate like, hey, I think Brandon Powell's going to win WR3 and he's going to be really fucking good at it. Like, that's kind of how some of us are gung-ho about it. But because they have done nothing in free agency after Sherfield, and because they did not participate in a draft that was really deep at WR3, and, you could go assign Hunter Renfrow after breakfast tomorrow. They haven't done that. So I believe that they have big plans for one or multiple of those unsung guys. Tristan Jackson's down there, Lucky Jackson. And it's probably a guy where we don't even really know, like, now, whether that is Thayer Thomas or Deshaun Jones. So that is my working theory, because otherwise they have to know the thing about Hawkins. They have to know it's a reality probably that he's not going to play until late October or something. Mm-hmm. And if they're just skimming along, not caring as Tyler Boyd goes off the board, all of those really good WR3s, I think they have somebody like Keenan McCardell saying, we don't need any of those old idiots. We have, we got Deshaun Jones. This guy can ball. We got Thayer Thomas. I've been telling you about him. I think he's saying that type of stuff. And therefore, by the time, we're doing this show, maybe 8, 9, 10 weeks from now, we'll be talking about, hey, look at Thayer Thomas. That guy is a baller. That is my hot take, is that we're spending maybe unnecessary time analyzing WR3 as a three-way race, that it's not weird at all for an undrafted wide receiver to turn out to be good to the tune of a WR3. I don't think we'll have another Adam Thielen, but I bet you they can find a guy who can get 650 yards in a single season.
For sure. So on our last episode, I had a whole, mental block about going back and forth between calling JJ McCarthy JJ and then talking about Justin Jefferson and calling him JJ and keep mixing myself up. So how appropriate would it be if Deshaun Jones just came out of nowhere and was Adam Thielen and turned into some prodigy Pro Bowl wide receiver 3, and just for the rest of like the next 10 years we have to say JJ and say who we're talking about,
Yeah, we'd have to figure out Deshaun's middle name, and then hopefully it's something like Travis or something, because then it'll just be JTJ. Yeah, because it was already, when we were just getting into draft time and McCarthy as a Viking became a real, possibility, I think I tweeted something to the effect, I was like, we got to do something about this JJ thing because it's going to get really confusing. So I was like, therefore, I'm going to call JJ McCarthy. And then we figured out that Jefferson said, just call me Jets around the building, and JJ could be the real JJ. Makes it slightly less confusing.
Yeah. We just all have to put our foot in the sand and figure out exactly what we're doing.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. They'll have some cute press conference and tell everybody like, this is what we need to do, or YouTube video. It'll be fun.
And that's on top of all the letter.js that we already have between TJ, CJ, KJ just left. So yeah, it's there's not a shortage of those.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we got 2 more quick things here.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, you want to talk about the surprise cut question we got?
Yeah, so you guys will have to remind me what we decided on before we hit record here, because I can't remember exactly what we decided. But we've got 5 players here, and I think the plan is, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to rank these guys 1 through 5 based on how surprised we would be if they got cut from the team before the final 53-man roster. So I think we decided 5 was least surprised and 1 was most surprised.
As long as we agree on something right now, that works for me.
Yep, I'm
is that
down.
the scale? That was good.
Are you gonna tell the viewers the candidates first, or are we just gonna unveil? Okay.
So I'll unveil the candidates here, and then we can each kind of just quickly run through our list, kind of 5 through 1, least surprising to most surprising. So we've got Andrew Booth Jr., Lewis Seen, Jalen Naylor, Pat Jones, and Brian Asamoah.
All right, Dustin, who would you be the least surprised? Or I'm sorry, the least surprised. You're number 5.
Okay, the least surprising cut, so that when I see, oh, hey, this guy got released, I'll be like, yep, saw that one coming.
Yep, of this group. Yep.
Of this group, yeah. For me, that's Patrick Jones. And I don't have any major grievance with Patrick Jones. But one really cool perk of this offseason that we don't talk about enough is suddenly we have too many edge rushers. You got rid of Daniil Hunter, said goodbye to Marcus Davenport, which we didn't really feel much pain.
Ooh.
And then DJ Wanham, who was pretty damn good last year. But in return, you got Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, Gabriel Murphy, Jihad Ward, and then undrafted guy, Bo Richter. I don't know if he counts. But that is a lot of guys, to face it, to replace Daniil Hunter. You can find free agents to replace DJ Wanham pretty easily. So one of the byproducts is that there's going to be uncomfortable roster cuts at outside linebacker. And I don't think Gabriel Murphy got paid $250,000, $350,000 just to get cut. I still have hope in Andre Carter because he was one of the big splashy UDFAs last year. So the least surprising cut from this list to me would be Patrick Jones, mainly because he wasn't drafted by this front office, and a good problem to have. The Vikings have too many edges.
Yeah. So I guess my least surprising would be Brian Asamoah, basically just because we never saw him again after Ivan Pace overtook the field there. Evan, what's your least surprising?
I'll maybe be a little controversial here. I've read some things and kind of tried to understand the whole Lewis Seen situation. I think Lewis Seen has a pretty secure spot with the Vikings going into next year. That's just opinion. There's not a whole lot backing that other than it's a position that the Vikings need some depth in. I think it's also he's not really been given a whole lot of opportunity to really prove himself. He's been kind of hampered by injury. So for better or for worse, I'll stick with Lewis Seen at the least surprising cut.
Okay, so you're saying you would be not surprised at all if he got cut, or the opposite?
See, that's where these games get challenging.
Yeah.
Especially this late. I go to bed about 9:30. My brain's playing tricks on me. I think he's the safest if we're going that route. Is that what we're saying?
Well, you went a little backwards, but okay. I think we understand what you're saying now.
All right.
All right. So just to get through it quick, my 4th least surprising cut would be Pat Jones for everything you just said, Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so your next least surprising after Pat Jones for you.
So I think I go against the grain, and I say Seen here. And it's not because I am just overjoyed to call him a bust, like a lot of the world is. Like, there's some people that just love calling Lewis Seen a bust, and I just don't get it. Like, the guy, broke his leg, and we have a little human decency here. But there are too many safeties on the Vikings roster. Like, none of these guys are going to get cut unless Jay Ward suddenly sucks or Theo Jackson is just some big mirage. They have 5 safeties, or is it? Yeah, they have 5 safeties as is, plus Lewis Cine, and then suddenly they also have a bunch of cornerbacks who could be uncuttable. So I can see Cine getting the axe, not because his career is doomed and he's the worst draft pick because they could have had Kyle Hamilton, but because the Vikings, even if Cine's good, where is he going to play? Like, they already have Harrison Smith, Cameron Bynum, and Josh Metellus. And so it'll be tricky for Cine to see the field unless he really is a badass. But we had a long way to go before he is that. So Cine would be near the bottom of the list for least surprise for me.
Okay. Evan, your least surprise cut. You just said Cine might be one of your most surprised cut. Who would be your least surprised, actually, couple of cuts here?
Well, now that I have my mind wrapped around what we're talking about, I'll stick with Cine as my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
I still think there's hope for Cine, but you know, we'll see. There's a lot to be seen there. I would say we'll go with Pat Jones as the number 4. Kind of crowded in that space there. I think he's kind of the odd man out.
Okay. All right. After Brian Asamoah and Pat Jones for me, I had Jalen Naylor on this group as the third least surprising cut for me, just because the injury history for him, he's kind of shown flashes. He's been the fancy pick for that wide receiver 3 spot, and he's gotten a couple of opportunities, but I mean, you can't make the team in the training room. So just because of that and the abundance of other players at that wide receiver room, plus maybe a signing or two, I think Naylor might be an odd man out in that room.
At number 3, so basically right in the middle for me is Andrew Booth. And I think this is a fair spot for him. There's 2 things that go into play. I guess the give and take or the pull and tug is, I don't know if it's just me, but last year Andrew Booth played, which was like 100 coverage snaps. The guy was good. His PFF grade was right like around 68, 69, which is pretty good for a second-year cornerback, you know, decent. And none of us cared that he looked pretty good when he played. I think it's probably because he wasn't a starter and didn't play more than 100 snaps. But I was pleased by the small sample that we saw Booth play. But the problem here, why he lives right in the middle on the cut list, is there are a lot of guys exactly like him, performance-wise, at cornerback right now. Jack Griffin, pretty good. Caleb Evans is kind of in a make-or-break season. Ryan Murphy's pretty darn good. He's going to start. Mekhi Blackman was great as a rookie. And then, who's the one guy I'm forgetting right now? There's one other one. Kyrie Jackson, the new guy. He's not going to cut. So, Booth... Cine or Booth, one of them is probably going to go, and I think it would be Cine foremost because safety is already spoken for. I am like just one of the weird folks that thinks Andrew Booth played well, and I don't want to see him cut. I think he can emerge this summer, and we're like, there's the guy we always wanted. But he would be right in the middle of surprise. Both of those guys, Cine and Booth, face massive make or break seasons this year.
All right, Evan, who is your third least surprising? We're all kind of confusing this a little bit, or at least I am a little bit now.
We're just using different language to describe it, but I'm on board. I'm tracking now. I'm gonna go with Jalen Naylor. He had 3 catches last year. Just not a very productive part of the offense, and I think I counted 13 wide receivers currently on the roster right now. So 3 catches with 12 other guys that have something to prove. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes.
Yeah. All right. Now down to we'll flip it a little bit. My second most surprising cut of this list for me. We've said his name probably the most of everything. Lewis Cine. I think just because he does still have that first round equity, the excuse a little bit of that injury, and also contract wise, it might be you'd feel it a little bit more cutting him than other people here on this list as far as dead money and stuff. I don't know the exact numbers, but just being a first round pick. And I think he gets one more season to kind of show something. And then honestly, his Vikings career in the future is probably not much after this year, but he's going to be doing a lot to try to show the entire league that he's worth signing. So all for that, I think in 2024, he'd be my second most surprised cut on this list for me.
Wait, to me?
Yep.
My second most surprise would be Jalen Naylor.
Okay.
And this is because, he's looked pretty damn good at the OTAs, and we spent, about 5, 8, 9 minutes talking about WR3 and the need for one. Well, you got one at home if he's any good. So I think Naylor's speed, couple that with he was drafted by this regime. You've got a giant wide opening at WR3 if he wants it badly enough. The thing that comes the most about this is health. He's got to stay healthy. I'll always be sad that last year he couldn't stay healthy or he wasn't good, whichever one was true, because with Jefferson out that long, he had a golden opportunity to shine, and he just really didn't do much of anything. So I'd be mainly surprised at this one because this is the year the team needs him. This is your job as WR3. Yep. Go win it. And then he's one of their guys, and I think there's a little bit of upside that if he gets cut, that will mean my previous theory from 10 minutes ago was really correct, that, Ty James from Mercer is really good or something like that.
Yeah. All right, Evan, your most surprising cut. I think, did I skip any for you?
No, I think, I think this would be my second most surprising cut. I think I'm last here in the chain.
Okay.
So I think my second most surprising cut would be Andrew Booth. Played 17 games for the Vikings last year, really consistent, and you got to have depth at that position. So I'll stick with him as my second most surprising.
All right. Andrew Booth would be my most surprising cut for everything, Evan, you just said. And Dustin, if we want to rewind a couple of minutes for everything you said about him a few minutes ago, he played pretty well, position of need, still pretty young. And I think, I'd be very surprised if he were cut as of this whole group, just because he's still young. He's got a lot of time to show that he is on the upward track. And I think he's already shown the first steps of being on the upward track. So, I'd be surprised if he were cut.
So we are for this list at vast odds because I have Brian Asamoah as my most surprising cut. And this isn't because he played wonderfully last year. He only played 35 defensive snaps or something like that. He was a complete footnote. Ivan Pace just came through and just smacked him and said, that's my job. Mm-hmm. But the reason I can't see him getting cut this year is the depth. It's him and Camus Gregor Hill. I can never say his name. Yeah, and that's it in terms of veterans. They've got Dallas Gant or something like that. He is the other. Yeah, Dallas Gant, Abraham Beauplan, and then KJ Cloyd. So unless they want to get an old Flores off-ball linebacker from the Patriots days or something like that, I don't think there is enough depth to tell Asamoah goodbye. And we saw Asamoah play well as a rookie, so I'm convinced that lives in there somewhere. It's just that I believe Ivan Pace was too good he could box out anybody that wanted the job last year. If this was like cornerback, where they had 5 off-ball linebackers that were about as good as Caleb Evans and all those guys, then I would say, yeah, I could see that. But in terms of off-ball linebacker depth, it's basically after the starters, Asamoah and Gregor Hill, and then undrafted guys. So I think Asamoah is safe.
All right. Evan, I think you're the last one here. Who's your most surprising cut?
And the only remaining one on my list is Brian Asamoah as well. And I would agree with everything that Dustin said. It's a depth thing and it's an experience thing. And I think it's also just being in that Flores system now for a year, understanding how things work. When Ivan Pace needs a break, you got to put somebody in there. And he's the guy, I think.
All right. Well, that was fun. Mm-hmm. All right, so this next question, I had the chance to, on 2 episodes ago of the Skol Hop, ask the guys from You Betcha and Breakfast Ball these same rapid-fire questions, And at the time, I gave my own answers for these, so I will step back. I'll just ask them. Dustin and Evan, without thinking too much, I didn't give you these specific questions. There's 5 of them that you just no explanation, just here's the answer. So remembering that there will be probably more than 2 quarterbacks on the roster, how many starts does Sam Darnold get in 2024 for the Vikings? Barring injury, assuming everybody's healthy. Dustin?
Oh, my goodness. So I have this hot take that Darnold's going to be good because that's just Vikings football. So good that we can't play McCarthy. It's just, and this isn't from somebody that thinks Darnold is like good. I know it's going to happen. So Darnold's going to be good enough. Oh man, I'm going to say until they're eliminated. So I'm going to say about 14 or 15.
Okay. Evan, how many starts for Sam Darnold?
I think we've talked about this on a previous episode before, and I'm going to stick with what you've said, Austin. I'm going to go with 6 games. Week 6, the Vikings go to London and play the Jets, and then they have a Week 7 bye. I think Sam Darnold starts those 6 games, and then they start to shift things during the bye week, and Week 8, we might see J.J. McCarthy.
All right. So this is again where I remind you guys that there probably will be more than 1 quarterback or more than 2 quarterbacks on the roster this year. So this could be a little hot takey, but how many starts for J.J. McCarthy? Dustin?
I'm going to go 14 for Darnold, so 3 for McCarthy. That'll be kind of that NFC North, not gauntlet, but remainder of the season. And the only reason I think that is sometimes with Vikings football, it's almost like a missed field goal. You can feel it coming, and then you see it, and you're like, I felt that coming. I just feel that Sam Darnold is suddenly going to look like the 3rd overall pick or whatever he was in 2018 because he finally got the coach that loves him, and he's got all these weapons. So I think that'll keep McCarthy. Cynically, because I want McCarthy to play right away, they're not going to let him do it. And that means Darnold's going to be too good. So 3 starts for McCarthy when it's all said and done.
All right. Evan, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I would give McCarthy the remainder of the games after that. So whatever 17 minus 6 is that 11? I teach English. I'm not good with math. But yeah, I would give him the remainder of the starts, barring injury. I think I'm less optimistic that Sam Darnold will be as good as we hope he will be. I think right now he's the bona fide Week 1 starter. But I still think early part of the season, it won't work, and they'll move pretty quickly to this really highest drafted quarterback overall for the Vikings. They'll move to him pretty quickly, I think, and see what he can do down the stretch, for better or for worse.
All right. Okay, next up, we have yards and touchdowns for Justin Jefferson. Dustin?
Ooh, okay. So I think he will stay healthy this year. He won't have somebody as steady as Kirk throwing to him. So what does a good but not electric Jefferson season look like? That's probably 1,550 yards, and he finally hits 10 touchdowns.
All right, Evan, what do you got?
We'll give him. I think they're going to rely on him more, which I think means he'll get more targets, but probably in line with what Dustin said. Yeah, we'll go with 1,500 yards and let's say 9 touchdowns.
Price is right.
All right, same yards and touchdowns for Aaron Jones.
Oh boy. All right, so he's not going to play 17 games. We are not that lucky. So I'm going to say, God, what did he have last year? Probably something that's similar to last year. Hold on, I'm going to pull that up real quick because the reason he's playing for the Vikings right now is because he played like a total fiend down the stretch of the season. Last year he had 656 rushing yards. I think he'll be a little bit healthier than that. Yeah, and I think poor Ty Chandler, the guy played really well for a couple games, and if the Vikings didn't have these huge rushing game struggles, he probably deserved a look. I'll say for Aaron Jones, about 900 rushing yards, and he's a touchdown scorer, so probably 9 or 10 touchdowns.
All right.
I'll give Aaron Jones 1,000 yards even. I think the Vikings are, and I think Kevin O'Connell is hungry for some health in the rushing game. It was lacking last year, obviously, and we tried a lot of different things. And Ty Chandler did have some good games, but I think Aaron Jones will come in. He'll be the bell cow for sure. I'll give him 1,000 yards. We'll give him 8 touchdowns. He's only broken 10 touchdowns once in his career, so we'll give him 8. I think that's better than Vikings running backs have all of 1 touchdown this last season. So,
yep. This is one question I didn't answer on the previous episodes. So just to give a quick answer, I'm going to say 650 yards rushing, and we'll go 7 touchdowns. I think they'll really have him more than anybody else on a pitch count. They'll kind of hold him back until they absolutely need him. I think Ty Chandler gives them that affordability to kind of switch up the room. Plus, I mean, I feel like the Vikings offensive line has proven to not be the best run blocking offensive line. But you never know. With a rookie quarterback, they might want to rely on the rushing game too. So you never know. Still for him, 650 and 7.
Remember too, he catches the ball and he scores receiving touchdowns. He hasn't cracked that 10 touchdown rushing touchdown very often, but I think 3 or 4 times he's hit the all-purpose touchdowns over 10. He's even more of a dynamic pass catcher than Dalvin ever was. So keep that in mind. Mm-hmm.
Which, to that point, may cut into his ability to gain rushing yards.
Yeah.
Too. So, yeah. All right, last one. It's way too early. Season training camp hasn't even started yet, but just final record. And I'll start. I've got them at 11 wins.
Gosh, I have fans on every Friday. I try to have a panel of 3 fans.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you guys are coming up with these 11 wins and 12 and 5 stuff, and I'm like, what are we doing? We're setting the bar way too high. I'm consistent. Last year I said 10 and 7, but I'll talk myself into 11 and 6. This year it's the inverse. Right now I say 7 and 10, but when I see the ball zooming around at training camp, I'm going to be like, yeah, all right, we're going to go 8 and 8. So I will say 8 and 8, but it'll be a frisky 8 and 8. The Vikings, what they do, like minus a couple of seasons where they're downright putrid, bad. They're always there at about December 1st. You're like, these guys are 6 and 6, man. They can do it. If situation A happens, then they're going to do situation B. So I will say that they'll be 8 and 9. It'll be a competitive 8 and 9, probably involving a junior collapse down the stretch.
All right. Evan, final record as of before June.
Yeah, I'll go with 10 wins. I think they win a few early on in those first handful of games before the bye week, and then they drop most of those, and then I think they really pick it up. They really figure it out after the bye week, and again, I think the quarterback change might have something to do with that. It won't be great. It won't be 6 or 7 games in a row, but it will be enough to potentially be in the conversation for a wild card at the end of the season.
The reason that I can merge or marry JJ McCarthy getting in the final few games, them being 8 and 9 being a contender, is I think they're going to somehow get out to something good, and then you're going to see like a 3-game losing streak from Darnold, and we'll be like, all right, he turned back into a pumpkin. And then Kevin O'Connell's going to come out and say, like on December 15th, like, this is the time we're gonna give JJ a look. We're on the 3-game losing skid. We drafted him for a reason. So that's how I can reconcile all of these wild theories.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy being quarterback 2 to start off with, and the idea that he could be ejected in at a tough time kind of feels like a Mario Kart red mushroom. Like, give us a little boost here for a little bit and see if that helps. All right, Dustin. thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
You're welcome back. Open door anytime. We've gotten to a good rhythm of about once a month, give or take here.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you want to come on, not that you don't have every other opportunity to talk about the Vikings everywhere else on the internet, but you're always welcome here. Anything you want to plug quick before we wrap it up?
Nope. We did that at the top of the show. Let's see. We talked to Walter Rouse last week. That was fun on Vikes Now. Yep, that dude was really cool. He knows his stuff. There was some reports that said, like, pre-draft lead up, hey, maybe he can play guard. And I asked him, and he said, hey, if they need to play guard, I'll play guard. It kind of felt like he was being silly. He can certainly play right tackle. But yeah, so check Walter Rouse out on Vikes Now. I say for you gentlemen, if you're available, like on June 25th or July 2nd, I'll be in Norway the next 2 weeks. But I think after that, we can chat about kind of how the mandatory minicamp has gone, and then start to preview training camp if that's cool.
Yeah, let's plan on it. Sounds great.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Pretty fun conversation with Dustin. It's always great.
I always love having Dustin on. I don't know if he ever listens back. I think he told us one time he listened back. I think him and Yannick Eckhard were going to the Bengals game, and they were driving there together, and they listened back right after the first time he was on, which was pretty cool. So, Dustin, thank you for coming on. If you're listening, just, I don't know, send us a smiley face letting us know you're listening. But yeah, it's always good. Friend of the show, Dustin. I love that we can say that now, because I started off as a fan, just a Twitter fan of this guy, and now he's on our show all the time. So it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. We spent, I think, the most time we've ever spent with him too.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of things.
He was extremely gracious with his time. It was also the latest part of the day that we've ever recorded with him, which worked for us. You never know with other people. It's like, are we going too late for you? We might have been going too late for you, Ev, but
it's definitely after my bedtime.
Well, and
that's all right.
It might have shown a little bit when we all got a little confused on the question about how surprised we'd be for each player to get cut. And Dustin and I were completely opposite with our most and least surprised player.
Yeah.
I said I don't even remember. I'd be least surprised if Brian Asamoah was cut, and he said he'd be most surprised. So good episode with him, good conversation, and I liked his wide receiver take. So
yeah, and we mentioned in the early part of our episode, because the Justin Jefferson news came out just today, we'll link to the article that Dustin's counterpart Yannick Eckhart wrote for Vikings Territory on kind of the whole Justin Jefferson contract thing. We'll have that linked in the description below, so don't forget about that. Make sure you go check them out, and check out Vikings Territory for any and all Vikings content. They always have some really good stuff there. So
yeah, I can't remember if I said this to Dustin before or after we started recording with him, but I kind of told him, like, it has become for me like a go-to site to get not only news but like no nonsense and common sense quality takes on the factual news. So Vikings Territory, they're never going to print something that is wrong or specifically clickbaity, but they are going to tell you the facts and maybe a little bit of opinion and maybe some speculation on what could happen in the future. But good site. Check them out if you haven't already. VikingsTerritory.com. They're not a sponsor, but yeah, I'd love it if people said, yeah, I checked them out because you guys said so. So it's good stuff.
What did you think of the Hazy Forecast from Backpocket?
This is so good. Like,
it is good.
It's so I'm one that I will go for a bold flavor. Like, I know that I can handle heavy IPA flavors and really spicy food, and like I like bold flavors, but this is refreshing. It's not offensive. It's not a hit you in the face too bold of a flavor, but it's really good. And Backpocket should be proud of it, and I hope it's not just a seasonal or a limited run, because it's really good, and you should definitely try it.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but I don't know. It could be kind of a limited release type of thing, but I don't know. I haven't ever seen it on the shelf before until tonight when I was at the store, and I saw Hazy, and I saw the description, and I'm like, Austin's going to like that beer.
Yeah.
So.
And you were right, and you hadn't even tried it yet, but you were right. Maybe we should hit up Backpocket on our brew hop tour that we're putting together.
Yeah. So I think we counted 6 weeks from now.
Yeah, from right now. So maybe a little bit less time by the time we get all this out and you're all listening to this. But yeah, we're coming up. Episode 50. It's going to be a monumental episode.
It's going to be a good one. And we're going to focus on the beer more than the Vikings for once. We might wear our Vikings shirts, but
absolutely.
We'll be out and about, and we'll be visiting places possibly like Backpocket.
Yeah.
And hopefully filming some stuff and documenting our journey along the way.
Absolutely. So we're still finalizing everything. And I think we talked, maybe we'll kind of post out where we'll be. So if you want to come say hi to us, maybe we'll have that information out. But also, maybe most importantly, if you're a brewery in Iowa and you're interested in, having us in, obviously our plan is to walk into every brewery and be, well-mannered paying patrons. But if you guys want to kind of showcase your brewery a little bit, we'll talk about you guys and show the brewing equipment. If you're willing to show us anything, we're excited if you're excited. So we'll come if you call us. So let us know if you are a brewery or if you know somebody who might be interested in kind of having some kind of content with the Skol hop.
Yeah, definitely reach out to us for more information about when specifically we'll be going on this little adventure. How
can people, even if you're not a brewery, how can people reach out to us?
You can reach out to us in a lot of different ways. YouTube, we've been getting quite a few comments on YouTube lately, so thanks for that. Those of you that have been interacting with us there. You can send us messages on Facebook, Twitter. Those are probably the two main kind of social media platforms that we're on. Instagram a little bit.
TikTok a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are great places to connect with us. But you can also just email us, theskolhop@gmail.com.
And we will reply.
we definitely will.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, and our website too, Skol Hop. The Skol Hop?
theskolhop.com.
Theskolhop.com. You can find links to everything from there, even episodes and YouTube videos. We're there.
Yeah.
And even merch. I'm repping our Skol Hop shirt. Evan had it on last week.
That's right.
It was a different one. We're obviously not sharing a shirt.
We even have coffee mugs.
Ooh, yeah.
So even if you don't like beer,
about those.
But you like a good coffee mug with a good old Vikings logo on it.
Yep.
Skol.
Well, our version of the Norse logo with a hop. But yeah, check us out and let us know you're there.
Yeah. Good episode.
Great episode. Best episode yet.
We just keep getting better and better.
Every time.
We're like a fine wine. We get better with age.
Or a good hazy IPA.
They
actually don't get better with age. Don't age your hazy IPAs. It doesn't go well.
You can age some beers, but not
a hazy. It turns very vinegary. It's not good. Not a good idea. Drink them when they're fresh and great, like this Hazy Forecast from Backpocket.
And this one was.
Yep. All right, man. Till next time.
Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.